Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. So this is part 2 video on Blazor WebAssembly CRUD sample where we use .NET 7 API as a backend and MudBlazor UI components. So in this video we are going to create a .NET 7 Web API project. Now to our solution, let's add one more project. So go to add and create new project. And from here, we can select API. Okay, ASP.NET Core API template, we have to select. Click on next. And here we need to provide the name for project. So I will name it like okay, .NET 7 dot blazor dot API. Now go to next and make sure to select .NET 7. Click on create. Okay, here is our API project. Now in API project, install Entity Framework Core and SQL libraries. So using those libraries, we are going to use database context. So go to dependencies and right click on packages. Go to manage NuGet packages and go to browse and search like EF Core. Okay, here EF Core and install it. Okay, EF Core is successfully installed. Next, we need to install SQL, which is dependent on our EF Core. Okay, so for that, here you can see Microsoft.ntframeworkcore.sql. So select it and install it. Okay, it is also installed successfully. You can see a green tick mark here. Okay, now let's go to our packages and here we can see our entity framework core and SQL libraries. So we have created superheroes table, right? So to implement database context, we need to create a table class, right? So we have to create a class like superheroes and all the table columns need to be added as property to those class. So technically that class will act as a table in our project. Okay, copy the name, table name. So first let's create the folders. First folder data. Inside the data folder, let's add one more folder like entities. So entities folder is for table classes. So let's create our table class. Okay, here is my class. Now we have to implement the properties. So let me copy these property names. Okay, let's add. Okay. And all our string properties accepts nullable values. So add question mark at the end of our string type. That means those are nullable properties. Now let's create our database context class. Okay. So database context class name, by convention, just give same as like our database name. Okay. But I will just remove the underscore. Let me remove YouTube also. Okay. So my old DB context. But in general, it is good to give our database name as our context class name. So now this is simple class, right? So, but I have created it inside of the entities, but move it to the data folder. Okay. So DB context is under data folder, table classes under entities folder. Okay. Now it is simple plain class. To make it DB context class, inherit DB context. Okay. That comes from Microsoft Entity Framework Core library. Now add constructor and define DB context options. And here type is our context class name itself. Okay. And pass the options to base class, nothing but DB context class. Okay. Now every table class must be registered inside of the DB context using the DB set. Okay. So let me register my superheroes class here. So DB set and type is our class name, class type superheroes. Okay. So that is our simple database context class. Now in app settings.development.json, let's add our SQL connection string. Okay, by default, this JSON file supports connection string property. Okay, see here. So inside of it, let's create a property. To that property, add our connection string value. Okay. So let's add here SQL connection string. Okay, here I added my connection string. Connection string is just key value pair. Okay, let's understand them. Data source. Okay, it is a key. And value, our server name. Here I am using my local DB. And initial catalog, your database name. So here I assigned my database name. Integrated security equal to true. That means take Windows authentication for authorization. Okay. And connection timeout 30 seconds. Now let's register our DB context in the program.cs file under dependency injection so that our context can be injected wherever we want. Okay. So we have to always register just above this where app equal to. Okay. So builder dot services dot add DB context. And here pass our context class as a type and options dot use SQL server that comes from NT framework core. And here we have to pass the SQL connection string. So to pass the SQL connection string, I can use builder dot configurations dot connection string. So here get connection string is the method. So to that method, we have to pass the property of our connection string name. Okay, copy this and add here. Okay, that's about DB context registration. Okay, now let me create a service file where I'm going to implement my database communication logic in upcoming steps. Okay, for that, let's create a new folder in the API project. I will name it like services. First, I am going to create a contract. Contract is nothing but the interface. Okay, so my service contract is, I will name it like I superheroes service. Okay, this is my interface. And next, I'm going to create the implementation class. Okay, that is superheroes service. Okay, and let's inherit our I superhero service. Okay, now let's inject our database context in this service. Okay, so that we can communicate with our DB. So private read only my world DB context. Okay, okay, let's add constructor and inject DB context. Okay, that's it for now. Now let's create a controller that represents our superheroes endpoint. For that, inside of the controllers, right click and add and click on controller and select API and select template API controller empty and add. And now I can specify name like superheroes controller. Okay, here is my controller. So I want to inject the our I superhero service into my controller. So to inject it must be registered in DI. So register our I service superhero service in the program.cs file. So builder.services.add scope. Scope service means the object must be created only one object per request. Okay. So I superheroes service comma superheroes. Okay. Now let's inject this service in the constructor. So private read only I super hero service. Okay, and add constructor and inject I superhero service. Okay, next we are going to implement read operation. So read operation, we are going to work both API project and Blazor WebAssembly project. In API project, we are going to create HTTP GET endpoint. In Blazor WebAssembly, we are going to consume that HTTP GET endpoint and render the API response using MudBlazor UI components. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video delivered some useful content to you all. If you like the video, please do support by subscribing to channel. Please don't forget to like and share the video. Soon we are going to meet with new content. Until then, signing off.